Love, ain't it a bitch? So Dexter Season 8 tells the story of Dexter trying to maintain his double life after his sister discovers his dark secret. Welcome back to the Dexter Review Series, everybody, and now we are on Season 7. Now, this is a season that seems to be a very divisive season. It seems like you either hate this season or you love this. I've never really seen anybody in the middle on it. So this is one that I've been looking forward to revisiting because I've only seen it when it was airing on TV. I've never watched it in a binge format. And I've also been looking forward to talking about it because previous to this rewatch, this was one of my favorite seasons. So I was curious if rewatching this season was going to affect that at all. Was I going to see a lot of the problems that people have with this season? Or was I going to hold true and try to say, you know what, I don't know what season you guys watch because this shit's pretty awesome. So let's get into it. And for this review, I'm going to go in reverse order. I'm going to start with my negatives. I'm going to talk about the one element of this season that I mixed on and then get into all of my positives, because when I was writing my notes, which I don't necessarily do for movies, but I do for television shows because there's so many hours of content that I have to talk about in one video, I noticed that most of my negatives kind of leaned to the beginning of the season. My mixed kind of developed in the middle of the season, and all of my positives developed by how everything wraps up. So it's going to be kind of like a timeline of this season going through my thoughts. So with that being said, my negatives for Season 7, which really just tie to direct plot points that are in this season. One of them is that Quinn, who I have been, kind of up and down on his entire storyline in this one regarding this Russian immigrant girlfriend stripper that he has and all of the shitty situations he gets himself into with the Russian mob trying to save her and then having to kill a guy and stage a crime scene by the end of it. Quinn's a fucking idiot. That's all I gotta say. Like, this is a character that I really enjoy sometimes, and other times I'm like, dude, this is the biggest fucking dunce in this entire show. This is one of those seasons where it just felt like they needed to have him do something. Like, it's definitely within character that he gets into this ridiculous situation because of a piece of ass, because he's done it every single season. I mean, he was with Trinity's daughter, and then he was messed around with Deb and went all nuts after that when she didn't want to be with him anymore, and now he's with random stripper chick. And I never really bought into their relationship. I never really bought into their development of any kind of love between them or anything that actually felt like it had some weight to it that's worth paying attention to. It just felt like a reason to have Quinn entangled with this Koshka Brotherhood storyline. And by the end of it, I mean, he shoots the guy that is the main antagonist for him just like that and covers it up and is never really questioned about it. So it just seems like one of those side storylines that we have a lot in the back half of this show where they just kind of needed a character to do something and threw something together. Second negative is the character of Lewis, which I didn't even mention in my Season 6 review because they were just kind of starting this storyline. There was a side story in Season 6 with Masuka where he was going through all these different interns. He gets this hot-ass chick that's like this big joke that he's trying to be all womanizer towards her when she actually had the best scores. There was some good scenes there where she ends up selling the hand, the prosthetic hand from Season 1 and gets fired, and then Lewis comes in as this tech genius, and unbeknownst to us and slowly revealed at the last couple of episodes, he's got something of an obsession with Dexter. And we don't really find out what that is. In the first 3 or 4 episodes of this season, it might not even have been that long, it might have just been 2 episodes, you start to see what is going on, where he has this video game at the end of Season 6 that he wants Dexter to kind of endorse or give him pointers on, and Dexter dismisses him because he doesn't like the guy because he's a fucking creep. And the first 2 episodes of this season, first 2 or 3, is just about him trying to fuck with Dexter's life, canceling his credit cards, showing up unannounced at his place with Jamie, who is his girlfriend, messing with his computer, eventually trying to like sink his boat and stuff. So it's this really weird antagonistic relationship that feels wasted. It feels like it was only developed in Season 6 and carried through to Season 7 to give somebody to give Isaak Sirko Dexter's name. And it just felt like you did all of that work just for that one plot point. I mean, he could have found his name 1,000 different ways. So I liked what they were doing with this character. I thought that they could have done more, like have some kind of a weird vendetta that he has for Dexter that just keeps screwing him up all throughout the season until he finds out who it is. and they just kind of wash away that storyline in a couple of episodes. So it felt like a missed opportunity to me. Also, following up on something I said in my previous review about Mike Anderson being just a throwaway stand-in character to fill in Deb's slot when she moved up to lieutenant. Yeah, they kill him off in one episode here, so he gets absolutely nothing to do, and he just feels like a waste as well. Like, you could have developed him into not necessarily a Dokes character, because he's a very different, much more professional version of a cop than Dokes ever was, but you could have utilized him in Miami Metro to do something interesting. And again, they just did all that development, if you can call it that, in season 6, just to have him killed off to give Miami Metro a reason to go and investigate the Russians. It just, again, feels like missed opportunity. It feels like you threw away a character storyline just to get one little convenient plot point, what you could have done a lot differently. It is way beyond believability, the amount of work and the amount of time that Jamie spends with Harrison. And it's to the point where it's obvious the show just doesn't want to deal with the kids at all. I mean, they wrote Aster and Cody off the show completely in season 6. They might as well have just written off Harrison and had him go stay with Aster and Cody or something, because Dexter wants nothing to do with this fucking kid. I mean, anytime he's around him, he's like, shit, can you stay late? I got things to do. Can you stay late? And Jamie might as well be his wife. Like, she just is there all the time. And to the point where every time she shows up, I'm like, dude, how much money do you fucking pay this girl? Like, she has no life. She literally is his mom and his dad constantly. And it got to the point where, just like in season 4, where Dexter, it stretched my believability, how much he's able to just leave the house and nobody questions him. It's even more so in season 7, to the point where it's like, when does somebody call out that this fucking guy has no relationship whatsoever with his 2-year-old, 3-year-old son? And my final negative has to do with them once again revisiting that whole storyline about Deb being in love with Dexter.
I feel like if you love me, you'll accept this.
If I love you, I'm in love with you.
You're in love with me?
I fucking despise this storyline. Now, I've heard people try to defend it, and I understand completely where people's defenses come from as far as them being very close and not being blood relatives, so it's not as icky as it might sound on the surface. But for me, why I hate it is that it's totally unnecessary to both of these characters. Like I already said in season 6, they try to insert this extra reason why she would be shocked and betrayed and hurt at finding out that Dexter's a serial killer, when she would have had the same exact fucking reaction if she did not have like feelings for Dexter. That's her brother. That's her one person in her life that is constantly there, that is like the beacon of light for her. She feels like she's this fucked up person, and Dexter's just this picture of innocence, and that being shattered is all that that character needs. Now, they revisit it briefly in this season to try to give her an extra reason why she's hurt or why she's upset about Dexter dating Hannah McKay. And yet again, we don't fucking need that, because the chick is a poisoner, the chick is a murderer, the chick is somebody who is totally dodging all of Deborah's police work and getting away with it. That is more than enough reason for her to say, what the fuck, why are you sleeping with this chick? Why are you defending her? Why are you not killing her like every other person that you take out that have done a hell of a lot less? That is enough. You don't have to add in the thing about, oh, but she's also hurt because she kind of wants to be Hannah McKay in that situation. Fuck you. That is so stupid. Moving on to the mixed aspect of season 7, the main one for me just regards the way that they chose to do the storyline for season 7, which I do think is the big divisive element of this season. Every season up to season 7, and season 8 went back to this, has one singular villain and one singular theme. You know, we always have one focused antagonist for Dexter. I mean, you can have like, you know, the Barrel Girls are a bunch of different, but really it's just Jordan Chase. There's one head of the snake that is your big bad for that season. And season 7 chose not to do that. Season 7 chose to have multiple threats of varying degrees and have a lot of intertwining storylines be the overall focus rather than one singular goal for Dexter. And while I definitely appreciate the fact that this season tries to do something different, and I think that for the most part they do a good job at having the Deb and Dexter drama take place for a few episodes, and then you involve the Koshka Brotherhood and Isaak Sirko, who I love as a villain, and we're going to talk more about him, and they kind of wrap that up by like episode 9, and then you have Laguerta about halfway through the season start to become a really big threat. They kind of have multiple storylines budding throughout these 12 episodes. The problem is it makes the season feel a little bit unfocused, and it makes it feel like there's not really a ongoing theme or an ongoing message or a lesson for Dexter to learn by the end of it, which kind of breaks the formula of the show. Now, sometimes you need to break formula. I mean, we're in season 7 by this point. It's very possible that if they stuck with the formula, we would have had as disastrous of a season as we had in season 8, or a very, very mixed experience at best like we did with season 6. So maybe season 7 needed to do something different. I think that they do a mostly competent job, but I understand why, if the unfocused nature and just the sporadic nature of the storytelling in season 7 doesn't work for a lot of people. And actually, there's one other element that I'm mixed on, and this was something that I only noticed this time. I was totally cool with this conclusion when I watched this season for the first time, and I thought it was a great setup for a final season. And maybe it's because I know where season 8 goes that I'm a little bit less favorable of this conclusion, but Deb shooting Laguerta in that shipping container, I don't 100% buy it now.
Dex.
Now, there's something about it that I like as far as her having to choose Dexter and choose the wrong path by the end of this season that makes narrative sense. I mean, that's the whole journey that Deb is on this whole season, is finding out about this really dark, fucked up secret that Dexter has had his whole life, trying to process that, trying to subdue it, and then eventually just embracing it and almost being complicit in it by the 2/3 mark of this season. And it is a nice narrative conclusion to finally have her go all the way over the edge and commit a murder herself to protect Dexter. I like that side of it. The problem is the way that they set up this scene to where Dexter has shot the guy that killed his mother, and his plan is to also shoot Laguerta to make it look like they killed each other, and Deb walks in right before he's able to do this and holds a gun on him. And then Laguerta starts to wake up and is screaming at Deb that, you're a better person than this, that you need to put him down. Like, you're not this. You are not somebody that would do this. And Dexter eventually is like, she's right. Like, do it. Do what you got to do. And she breaks down and then shoots Laguerta. The way that they set up this scene, I don't completely buy that Deb would have done that. I think the more believable scenario is that she would have backed right back out of the shipping container, shut the door, and let Dexter do what he was going to do. Which in and of itself gets you to the same exact point, to where she has now gone off the edge and allowed him to kill somebody innocent that she knows didn't do anything wrong and is actually right, in order to cover up what they have done all season long and what Dexter has done his entire life. But the way that they frame it, I don't know, something about it, like if Laguerta had a gun on Dexter, that would make more sense. If somehow she woke up earlier than he thought, like his dose was not as strong as he anticipated, and she had a gun on him and Deb had to shoot her, it would have worked a little bit better. But she's got no weapon, she's got no way to hurt Dexter. Dexter literally has a gun right here and a knife on the floor. And so I just don't completely buy that character would look at that situation and think the only way out of this is for me to kill Laguerta. I honestly think she would have just left the container and let Dexter finish it. And they could have just had this scene end with a gunshot and her like reacting to it outside of the shipping container, and had the same exact ending, the same exact impact, and gone into her kind of going off the deep end in season 8. And it would have made exactly the same narrative sense. But it was just a little bit too much of a leap for me this time around, and it was something that was very different on this watch. Now moving on to the positives of season 7, and I do have quite a bit. I will be honest with you, post season 4, this is my favorite season of the show. It's still got problems. It's still somewhat of a mixed experience, but for me, it's a much more satisfying mixed experience than I had with season 5, which could have been a perfect season of Dexter. This, I think they do a lot of things, a lot of bold storytelling, a lot of interesting changes to the setup of Dexter that I really appreciated. So I'm on the side of the fence that likes what they did with this season. Now, one of the main things that they do, I think they did a damn good job with, is building off of the revelation that Deb has figured out that Dexter has killed somebody now. I mean, she walked into this church, she sees him stab Travis Marshall, season 6 ends right there. They pick up immediately after that. And I like how quickly they build off of that storyline. They could have easily have dragged this out for an entire season, which is probably what some people would have wanted them to do, and have just that be the focused narrative of Deb slowly uncovering how much of a secret this is. But they really get it out of the way by the end of episode 1, where she buys Dexter's story about Travis being there and jumping him, and Dexter just kind of snapping after everything he's been through the past couple of years. But by the end of the episode, she's like slowly starting to ask questions. She's slowly starting to kind of poke holes in Dexter's story. And when he walks into his apartment and she has tore the entire place apart, found the blood slides, found his collection of knives, and puts everything together in one episode and asks him, "Are you a serial killer? Are you the Bay Harbor Butcher?" And he just says, "Yes." That's awesome. And even over the next half season or so, there's all these little revelations that she comes to about the Trinity Killer and about Brian Moser and about the Barrel Girls and Lumen and everything, to where she is slowly piecing together all of the events of the previous 6 seasons in her own way, and slowly just building on top of this lie that Dexter has built and building on top of this secret that he has kept for so long, to the point where they have built her up so much as this really smart person that just comes up with these conclusions that are always right out of nowhere, that it finally made narrative sense for me in this season for her to do that, where she thinks back to something that's like, why was Rita this random ass victim of the Trinity Killer that made no sense for his MO? Why was Dexter involved with the Barrel Girls? Why was he involved with Lumen? Like, all these questions that made perfect sense for that character to ask, and they slowly started getting all of that out of the way to where she always called bullshit on Dexter, and it always led to these really great interactions between the two characters where Dexter's like, oh, fuck, now I gotta explain myself out of this one. And I thought the way that they built Deb's response to the Dark Passenger, it was really good. The way that she was initially so horrified by it, and then stepped into this stage where she's trying to save her brother and suppress it and do what her father never could, eventually leading to her realizing the inevitability that that's not going to happen, then kind of trying to turn a blind eye for a little bit and just kind of fighting against him like, no, we're gonna do it the lawful way, fuck off, finding out that he continuously fudges evidence to get people to land on his table, and then her getting in his ass about that, all the way up to the point where she finally starts to embrace the positives of his Dark Passenger, and even getting to the point where she asks him to kill somebody.
That smoke. It's Speltzer. How do you feel?
Glad.
I thought it was a really nice little arc that we take with this character. I think you could make a heavy argument that this is Deb's best season. Not only narrative, but acting performance-wise from Jennifer Carpenter. I think that she's fantastic this season. Like, season 6, she was a little bit rocky, to be honest. That was probably her worst season, in tie with season 8. But season 7, I love all of her responses to all of this. I think that the acting is really there. She had a tendency to like over-cry a lot in the first couple of seasons, and I think she subdues a lot of that this season. It makes it a little bit more believable. So this, to me, is the best season for Deb's storyline. Now, you have about 4 or 5 different little mini storylines going on all at once in season 7 or throughout different parts of season 7, and they all succeed to varying degrees, but for the most part, I think that all of them are all pretty damn good. Now, one of them is Ray Speltzer. Now, this is the guy that's kind of the catalyst for getting Deb to go along with the way that Dexter does things and to actually embrace it. And I thought that he is a really memorable side villain. Like, you usually get about 3 or 4 little freak of the week episodes in a season to where Dexter finds a case and he goes after that person, and by the end of that episode he takes them out. But Ray Speltzer was a nice little 2-episode arc where you get this guy that puts women in this like house of pain maze while he chases them around in a bull outfit and he beats them to death. And I thought it was a really good arc to have, to where he almost kills Deb. He does kill this innocent girl. Now she feels guilty. Then Dexter starts hunting them. Then he's hunting Dexter. It's this really nice, tense battle of wills with these characters. And I think that Ray Speltzer, as far as like his visual of how he kills people and this whole maze that he creates and the bull outfit, he's one of the most memorable side villains of this entire show. Then you have Isaak Sirko, played by Ray Stevenson, and I love this character. This is one of my favorite villains in the entire show. I think that the way that they write him to where He has a very understandable and sympathetic reason to be going after Dexter, which makes him different than all the other antagonists to where they're just evil, vile people.
You should cut your losses, Isaac. Go back to Kiev. The one thing that made my life worth living in Kiev, you tossed in the ocean a few weeks back. You and Victor were lovers. You took from me the one thing that money and power can't bring back. Till next time.
He almost has more of a reason to do what he does than Dexter did to a certain extent. And so it lets it to where you can kind of understand his side of things. And aside from that, man, Ray Stevenson's performance as this character is just so suave and cool and charming that I just love this guy. Like, I would want to hang out with him. I would want to be friends with him. Just the way that, you know, when Dexter sees him in his apartment and then he lets him go to this restaurant and calls him from a distance, and he's like, oh, aren't you a little smarty pants? And just the whole way that is, as long as Dexter is evading him and even a step ahead of him, he's so cool and charming the way that he kind of absorbs that information, that he's such a fun character. And he's also badass. Like, he's just a dude, like, you've seen him play the Punisher for those that have seen Warzone. This is a giant guy. And you believe when he walks into this little gangland bar that he's able to take everybody out and like crush a dude's skull with one stomp and just make it out of any situation. Like, they refer to him as the fucking Terminator at one point, and that's who he is. So the whole looming threat that he has throughout most of this season, I thought was a great side story. And even though he wasn't a full-on like season-long arc, I think that his antagonistic relationship and then eventual kind of friendship and understanding of Dexter is more compelling than most of the season-long villains that we have had. And I love the way that by the end they're friends, and by the end they have this understanding. They have this great scene in a bar to where they kind of come to a mutual respect for each other. And Ray Stevenson even says, like, it's a shame, like, under different circumstances we could have been great friends. And even all the way up to his death, he's giving Dexter advice on what to do with Hannah. Like, he's like, you know, indulge a dying man. What's the first thing you're gonna say to Hannah when you get her back? And Dexter's like, oh, I'm glad you're okay, I guess. And he's like, I guess, Jesus Christ, Dexter. And he's just giving him like, dude, embrace love. Like, fucking live. Like, I'm about to die. Do me the favor of living for me. And it's, I love the way that they wanted to murder each other, and then it goes all the way to this really great relationship that it's almost a shame it was cut short. Then you have Laguerta, which all throughout this season, she is slowly investigating this blood slide that she finds at the church burning, and slowly comes to the realization that the Bay Harbor Butcher might still be out there. And then by the last third of the season is full in belief that Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher all along. And I thought they did a really good job with that storyline. Laguerta has never really been, you know, shown to us as an investigative cop or anybody beyond like a politics player. So it was cool to see a different side of her and see maybe what got her to those ranks before she was able to make these power positions, that she was a keen investigative cop. And I think they do a good job at giving her just enough information that it's believable why she would jump to certain conclusions and pursue those and then eventually find more information. They could have easily have jumped the shark here and had her just do like a Deb superpower thing that she does a lot in season 5 and 6, where she just, what if this happened out of nowhere, and ends up being 100% right. They do a good job at her finding this and her finding that Dexter moved his boat right in the middle of the Bay Harbor Butcher investigation, and then finding his boat and then seeing how cleanly everything was set up for Dokes to be framed by the Bay Harbor Butcher, and then Dexter and her start to have this cat and mouse game the last couple of episodes, leading all the way up to that finale that I am a little bit mixed on now. But overall, the whole storyline of Laguerta finally figuring things out and going after Dexter, that's the level of craftsmanship that I think we're sorely missing in season 8, and they did a damn good job with it here. And finally, let's talk about Hannah McKay. Now, she also seems to be one of the elements of season 7 that people are very love or hate on.
Do what you gotta do.
And I am firmly in the love side. Like, aside from the fact that Yvonne Strahovski is just adorable, and I totally like fall in love with her along with Dex just because of her personality and her smile and just how intriguing of a character that she is. So I totally get why Dexter would just fall into her web. But aside from that, the whole storyline about him finally having somebody that totally understands and totally embraces and almost encourages who he is is a nice place to find the character, because obviously his whole relationship with Rita was an entire lie. Like, it was a nice, clean lie, but it was like almost a cover for him, even though he loved her. Then you got Lumen in season 5, which was building to something like that, and then they just cut it off and said, no, she's a whole other person now. She just woke up and don't want anything to do with this anymore, which I did not like. He finally has somebody that is a killer herself and understands the motivation and embraces who he is. Like, there's a point where she wants him to stay with her for Christmas, and he's like, I got things to do, and she knows that he's going to go kill the last man left alive that murdered his mother, and she's like, good for you, go do it. Like, she doesn't play that bitchy girlfriend thing where it's like, you should spend time with me. And I even like the way that they entangled Deb into this, to where she knows that Hannah's a murderer and she's afraid for Dexter, and really even to a degree possibly her nephew as well, to where they start building this storyline about, can you ever really trust a poisoner? Like, can you ever really feel comfortable around them? Like, as soon as they decide that you're not on their side or there's something going on, they can just take you out and you'll never even know it. And I thought that they did a good job of making that relationship a nice, healthy development for Dexter, but also another point of contention for him and Deb in the midst of all of these revelations this season. And it was a nice back and forth. Like, she's kind of the biggest storyline as far as the amount of screen time she gets, the amount of story focus she gets. And I like what they do with her, and having her kind of be betrayed by the end of it by Dexter because she tried to kill Deb, and leaving it open for her to return in season 8. Even though I don't like what they do with her in season 8, I like the fact that they left that open. So all in all, guys, I am a big fan of season 7. I love Isaak Sirko. He's one of the main reasons why I love this season. I think it's a fascinating character that I wish we could have seen more of, but I think they do a pretty good job at juggling a lot of different storylines and making this a genuinely tense sequence of events that rise up to a big explosive conclusion as far as character arcs. You know, a few rocky things here and there, certainly some storylines I think that they kind of threw away that they could have developed a little bit more, but overall, this is my favorite post-season 4 season of Dexter. So if you're still watching through Dexter and season 6 did not make you give up all hope, season 7 for me definitely is a big step up and almost reaches the heights of quality of the early seasons. So add this season to your collection and go out and buy it. So what do you guys think of season 7? Are you a fan of this one, or you despise this season? And if you despise it, please give me reasons down below, because I don't fully understand why this is such a offensive season to some people, but enlighten me. Let me know down below. Please like and share this video. If you're a Dexter fan, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because here in about a week, we're going to talk about season 8, which is a season that I absolutely despise, but I am going to rewatch it for the first time and see if my thoughts change. And then all throughout November and all throughout December, we're going to be talking about Dexter as it airs. So Dexter New Blood, when it starts on the 7th, I believe, I'm going to do exactly what I've been doing with Chucky, where I'm going to do an initial reaction review after the video, or after the episode airs. And the very next day, me and CP are going to do a live spoiler discussion every single Monday. So please hit that subscribe button if you're a Dexter fan. You got a lot of Dexter content coming over the next couple of months. Thank you guys for watching as always, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.